week, I murdered a rock, injured a stone, hospitalized a brick. I'm so mean I make medicine sick.
Fight fans, fight fans, fight fans. This is Kurt DeVille with Counterpunch Boxing News, and I have some new news concerning Errol, the Truth Spence. Get this. Errol Spence states that he's not worried if the Crawford fight doesn't happen. Errol Spence said he'd like to fight Terence Crawford for the undisputed welterweight championship, but if it doesn't happen, he doesn't see it as someone that will hurt his legacy. Spence points out that boxing greats like Felix Trinidad, Floyd Mayweather Jr., and Oscar De La Hoya never became undisputed champions. The IBF WBC welterweight champion Errol the Truth Spence, 27-0 with 21 knockouts, is fighting the WBA champion Yordenis Ugas, which is 27-4 and 12 KOs, on April 16th at the AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. If Spence wins, he'll be a 3-belt welterweight champion and 1 belt away from being undisputed. It's believed that Spence will fight Keith one-time Thurman in the next fight after Ugas, and then he may need to face Jared Boots Ennis, a fighter that is every bit talented as Crawford, but younger and more powerful. And states, definitely so, if we can get that fight made, it'll get made. If not, it is what it is, said Errol Spence. When asked if he'd like to fight Terence Crawford for the undisputed welterweight championship, he says, "I'm not going to dwell over it, but it's something that I want to be undisputed, so we'll see," continued Spence. "I don't think it's something I need to be an all-time great because I don't think Trinidad was undisputed. De La Hoya, Floyd, a lot of these greats weren't undisputed during the 4-belt era. I don't think it's something I need, but it's something I definitely want." Errol said about not needing to become undisputed to have an outstanding career, but if it can't happen, then it is what it is. Those are the words of Errol, the Truth Spence. Okay, let me counterpunch. Well, I think it's this. And like I've told you guys time and time again, I think that Errol Spence, AKA Strap Season, AKA I'm my own promoter, I don't think he's saying that I don't think that it's important to be an undisputed champion because the other guys weren't. De La Hoya, Trinidad, Floyd, Money Mayweather, right? At the time, they were welterweights or whatnot. Well, let me counterpunch that. For one, we did see Trinidad De La Hoya, September 18th, 1999, the fight of the millennium, right? We saw that. We seen Floyd, Pretty Boy Mayweather take on Oscar De La Hoya. Now, did it happen right away? No, it happened like 7-8 years after Trinidad and De La Hoya, because Trinidad, went up. De La Hoya eventually went up, but those guys were doing their thing in their own right. No, they weren't undisputed, but they did fight the fights that were necessary to become all-time greats. If Errol Spence is trying to say, hey, I don't need Terence Crawford to be an all-time great, I think he's mistaken. I think Terence Crawford doesn't need him. Why? Terence Crawford is not original 147er. He's not an original welterweight. He came from 135, then to 140, then to 147. See, if Errol Spence had a track record like that and he kicked ass wherever he went, like Thanos, if he had a Thanos-like resume or a Thanos-like avenue that he walked down, if his path was like that, then he could say that. But he's been at welterweight all his life, all his professional career. He chased Keith Thurman for like 2 to 3 to 4 years. Never got the fight, even though those were Al Heyman fighters. Okay? He went and took on Kell Brook after Kell Brook was already defeated. These are facts, people. He got that belt from Kell Brook, which is a very tough opponent, game opponent. He upped the ante, took that belt, that strap from him. right? Then what did he do? Fight. Who did he fight after that? Beat up a smaller Lamont Peterson. Was it Ocampos? I think he beat up. I think that's Ocampos. Hit him with a body shot. Yeah, he showed that he was strong. Went to war with Sean Porter. Okay, which in a very close fight. So you're like, okay, well, what type of guy is he really? Because him being the boogeyman, he's supposed to destroy Sean Porter. He's supposed to did exactly what Terence Crawford did to Sean Porter. Okay, so him saying that, and then by that time he tells Crawford get a belt. Then when Crawford gets a belt, it's you're on the you're on a different side of the street and all this. So you drew division you made politics. You put politics over the potential fight of a super fight. See, Errol Spence destroyed if he's Trinidad, he destroyed his Oscar De La Hoya opportunity, or vice versa. You know what I'm saying? You didn't hear De La Hoya or Trinidad talking about, well, you know what? Trinidad, what do you think about De La Hoya? Pero yo quiero esta pelea, pero Oscar De La Hoya de Bobero, entonces, no puedo trabajando esta pelea porque eres diferente con peleas. Like it's the side of the street. Like, no one said that. Ask Oscar. He's with Don King. Don King's terrible to work with. Bob Arum, he's terrible. I don't think that fight will happen. No. Nobody says that shit if they want to fight. Nobody says that. Okay, so no, that's just not what it is. Okay, and look, now he's saying, hey, if the fight doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. Okay. But like, don't say that people don't want the fight, and don't say that you want straps. Oh, I would love the undisputed fight, but Terence Crawford. No, he's not now. So you see how that worked? You see how easy it was? Well, they wasn't undisputed, so I got to be undisputed. No, it means you fighting the best in your fucking era. Fighting the pound for pound best fighter in the world. Fighting the guy that's also undefeated that came up to your weight class when you told him to get a belt, he got a belt, and you talked all this other shit and talked around the possibilities of fighting him and didn't fight him. People will remember that. Okay? And don't let Errol Spence lose for some reason. That's why I would prefer him to lose. Why? Because there's no money to be made from a fight that will never happen. Okay? So we all know Ugas. Ugas will fight Terence Crawford. He already said it. He wants that fight with Terence Crawford. Okay? So, that is the guy you want to root to win, because that guy is trying to fight for the undisputed, to make all these belts, all the politics, all the BS, all this stuff that makes boxing combined into one. One guy has it all. That means everyone has to see that one guy in that one division. Not this guy over there has a belt. That guy over there has a belt. Hey, that guy back south has a belt. No. One guy. Okay, so that's what you should want, because boxing depends on it. Not, we're going to fight Keith Thurman after that. He's going to fight Keith Thurman. You know why he's going to fight Keith Thurman? Keith Thurman, for one, is a less riskier fight. And for two, Al Heyman wants him to do that anyway, because Al Heyman can control the show. See, even if Terence Crawford doesn't sign with Al Heyman, he's a free agent. He still has to deal with the stipulations and the demands of that free agent, like he had to do with Canelo. You think they wanted to fork all that money out to Canelo Alvarez, $50 million? No. They did not want to do that, but they did that because they needed it for the ratings. They needed him. They needed that big name on their platform, people. Okay? So yes, he's going to fight Keith Thurman because that's right up the alley. That's a fight that Al Heyman can control. So he's like, that fight going to be done. You're going to fight him. All right, I fight him. Gerald Boots Ennis, I don't know if that fight will happen, because you know what will happen? Errol Spence will go to 154. And the only way Boots Ennis will probably get an opportunity, he goes up to 154. And then we don't even know if that fight will happen. So Errol Spence will play the role of Keith Thurman, the role that Keith Thurman used to play back in the day with him. He's going to play it with Boots Ennis. But with no circumstances will they take on Terence Crawford because they're making him that much more great. So let's put it this way. If Terence Crawford fought Errol Spence and stopped him, Errol Spence would not be an all-time great. The perception would be dead. All these channels that breed that bullshit, they would crumble, especially in that particular category. Okay? And Terence Crawford would, without a doubt, be an all-time great. He could retire, go off in the sunset, raise his children, have some more children, and teach them how to wrestle. Because that's what he does in Lincoln, Nebraska. Or Omaha, Nebraska. Sorry. That's exactly what will happen. And those guys know that. They're like, we're not going to give this guy an opportunity to become a lot bigger than he possibly could be by beating the shit out of our fighter. But anyway, you guys tell me what you think of Errol Spence saying that he doesn't need the Terence Bud Crawford fight. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunch. Peace.